Hi there, this is me again, Physicist 101. I just wanted to continue from where we stopped in the last lesson. In the last lesson, we had looked at electromagnetic waves and we looked at the physical properties and the electromagnetic spectrum. Today, we're going to be taking each of the waves, the types of waves, and we're going to look at the properties and applications of some of these waves. I choose to list 7 of them. Some people have more than 7 types of waves on the spectrum, but these are the 7 basic types. And today we will be starting with the long waves and radio waves. So, long waves, radio waves, what are they? Well, radio waves are actually waves that have very long wavelengths. Last time we talked about electromagnetic waves. We said you can think of electromagnetic waves like transverse waves. If you look at it from a one-dimensional point of view, it looks like a transverse wave. It peaks, where it peaks, we call that the crest. And then, of course, where it turns into like a valley, we call that the trough. Radio waves are rather long. They are actually the longest wavelengths on the spectrum. The wavelength of radio waves can range between 1 to 1,000 meters long. And just like the name says, radio waves are actually used for transmitting radio signals. Like, for example, our radio stations, our TV stations, and other kinds of transmissions as well. We're going to be looking at some of them. Now, because it has long waves, it also means that the frequency of radio waves are actually small or short. So the frequency of radio waves ranges between 5 kilohertz to 50 kilohertz. Now, what that means is that the radio waves are not strong enough to penetrate objects. For example, if you have a radio in the house, sometimes you have to move around, and sometimes you may even have to go outside, or you have to pull out the antenna to be able to capture waves or capture signals. And that's because radio waves are difficult to receive. They're not as easy to receive as some other kind of waves that are on the spectrum. Like I said, they do not easily penetrate objects because of the short frequency or the small frequency that they have. Now, we talked about the fact that radio waves can be transmitted. Now, one way that it can be transmitted is through an antenna, like a mast, the radio mast. This is like a radio station. It doesn't have to be this huge. However, the higher the mast is, the better the radio waves can be transmitted far and wide. Transmitters that don't have space or that are not exposed to the outside environment, those transmitters might end up transmitting weak signals. So you need a lot of clear open space to transmit. You also have devices that can receive radio waves, and these are called receivers. For example, your cable antenna dish, the satellite antenna dish that you have mounted on your roof. And notice that it's mounted on the roof, not inside the house, because once again, it needs to be able to receive a clear signal. And because radio waves are the weakest type of waves, If you had this dish inside the house, your signal would be very, very weak. So you have to bring it outside and mount it on a high level like the roof in order to be able to receive. You also have some other devices that can receive and transmit. So there are receivers as well as transmitters at the same time, like your cell phone. So cell phone can send signals, send radio signals out, and it can also receive radio signals as well. And your remote control is also another type of transmitter, because the remote control sends radio waves to your television, to your AC, to your fan, whatever it is that you're trying to remote control. You have to send a signal out, and those are radio waves as well. So these are uses or applications of long waves and radio waves. Well, let's check for some understanding here. Let's go through some of these questions and see what we know. What is the wavelength range of a radio wave? And when we say range, we mean between two numbers. So what's the range of a radio wavelength? The next question is, what's the frequency range of a radio wave? Once again, that's also a range. Give one example of a radio transmitter not mentioned in the lesson. We gave some examples, so now if you can give one example, it should be an example that that has to do with only transmission. That's why it says only here. Also give one example of a radio receiver only. So it has to be a device that only receives and can't transmit, and it should be a device that wasn't mentioned in the lesson. And finally, give an example of a device that can both transmit and receive radio waves. So I hope you got 5 out of 5, and this brings us to the end of our lesson for this section. Thank you.